Attention LA City renters and landlords. The LA City Eviction Moratorium has been over for a year. We are going to run through the renter protections that are gone and the ones that are still in place. We're going to cover how much rents can be increased under the RSO. We're going to talk about the Just Cause Ordinance, the JCO. We're going to talk about the renter protection notice. We're going to run through the number of evictions that have been filed since the LA City Eviction Moratorium has ended. And hot off the presses, there's a recent update to unauthorized pets in rental units in LA City. Hey there, Christian Walsh, real estate agent with Wire Associates. We've been helping LA renters and landlords understand their rights before things go wrong. And don't forget, we can't give tax or legal advice, but for the most honest and up-to-date real estate advice, subscribe to this channel. Let's jump in our time machine. If you remember last year, I released this video talking about important dates. We're going to run through last year's dates quickly and then move into this year's because there's a lot of big changes. So as of last year, the Just Cause for Eviction Ordinance, the JCO, had just been set up as of January 27th, 2023. The last day of the LA City Eviction Moratorium was January 31st. Eviction for non-payment of rent started February 1st, 2023 in LA City with one big caveat, and that is that it fell under the LA County Eviction Moratorium for non-payment of rent due to COVID. So February and March were protected under LA County, and I'll show you how that is relevant to repayment. Owner move-in, Ellis Act, unauthorized pet or person was set to go into effect 1 year later on February 1st, 2024. Lo and behold, we're already past that. And here we are 1 year later. The LA City Eviction Moratorium is over. We're going to run through important dates and what is happening now in 2024. So the Just Cause Ordinance, the JCO, is now 1 year old. Happy birthday, JCO. We release content. We're going to touch on that again briefly in this video. As of February 1st, 2024, a landlord can evict for an unauthorized person. They first must give a 30-day notice to cure, and then after that, they'll be able to evict for that unauthorized person. An unauthorized pet was originally included, and landlords are going to be able to evict for unauthorized pets, but it was just passed where unauthorized pets can now stay as long as within 30 days the landlord is notified of the pet. And this only applies to pets that were acquired January 31st, 2023 or before. So if you got one more recently, you can't keep it, unfortunately. This is for those who acquired pets during COVID. As of February 1st, 2024, rent can now be increased under the Rent Stabilization Ordinance. It's been several years that rent has stayed the same, and now it can be increased 4%. We're going to run through the calculator for this, which is some slight differences if utilities are involved. And the other important thing to note is when could you have delivered that increase? We're going to talk about that briefly. And as of February 1st, 2024, back rent is owed, and that would be the back rent from October 1st, 2021 to January 31st, 2023. The end of the LA City Eviction Moratorium. So that's due as of February 1st. If you can't pay that, then you could potentially be evicted for that. Now, if you didn't pay rent due to COVID as a tenant for February of 2023 and March of 2023, you fell under the LA County Eviction Moratorium. So the last remnants of the LA County Eviction Moratorium give you up to 12 months to pay it back. So if you missed rent for February of 2023 and March of 2023, you have a year to get that paid back as well, but that's it. But after that, there's no additional time to pay the back rent that's owed during these time periods. If you're enjoying all the data in these charts plus these updates, subscribe to our free weekly email newsletter and we'll gently deliver them to you every Sunday in your email inbox. Here's a quick look at the Rent Stabilization Ordinance rent increase calculator. So officially, rent increases could not happen to RSO properties from March of 2020 through January 31st of 2024. That's a long time for no increases for landlords. Now they can increase it 4%. There is a difference if the landlord pays utilities. They can tack on a little extra, and you can go ahead and use this calculator to determine the new rent as a landlord and tenant. You can double check it here. I have a link below so you can do that. One important thing to point out, these rent increases are effective as of February 1st, 2024. That's the first time they can go into place. A rent increase under 10% in the state of California can be given with a 30-day notice as long as you're month to month. So when can you deliver this rent increase notice? Nobody knows for sure. So there are some folks who gave it 30 days before February 1st, and there's some folks that waited until February 1st to give the rent increase. And depending on who you talk to, some attorneys said you could do either. LAHD said you could deliver it 30 days before. Everybody was all over the place whether you had to wait until February 1st to deliver it, or you could deliver it so the rent increase went into effect on February 1st. So until it's tried in court, nobody knows the definitive answer on this. Just wanted to point that out, that there is some confusion out there related to that. And here's the LA Renter Protections Notice. And this is required to be posted in a common area. So if you live in an apartment building, for example, a laundry room or near an entrance to the building itself, if it's a house or a condo, it should be posted outside the door. It is required on all rental units in the city of LA. And it's also required to go to all renters in their lease going forward. So whether it's a lease or a renewal, you need to include this. And there's a lot of good information on here. The biggest thing on here is a summary of some of the new renter protections put into place January 27th and later, including the Just Cause Ordinance and other additional things. Relocation assistance. So now anytime a landlord will ask a tenant to move under a no fault reason, and that's for all rental properties, houses, condos, mobile homes, big apartment buildings, there are certain just cause reasons that someone can be asked to move out of their unit, and in some cases can't be asked to move at all. But if they are able to be asked to move out for no fault reason, they will then be given these relocation assistance amounts that are on this chart here. The single family dwelling, the 1 month's rent only applies to the Just Cause Ordinance in very specific cases. If the landlord owns fewer than 4 residential units in a single family home on a separate lot, then they can use that. Doesn't apply to condos. The other numbers you see here are related to the rent stabilization ordinance. So definitely understand your rights as a renter, and as a landlord, you need to know how much money you're going to have to give your tenants. This is a new notice revised as of 12/12/2023. It isn't required that the landlord post the new notice. You may want to as a landlord as they come out. They come out periodically, but I would recommend when giving it to the tenant for a lease or a renewal that you use the latest version. Talks about rent increases, and this is the new rent increase for properties that are not RSO, because RSO properties, it's 4%. So this would be properties that are subject to AB 1482. The maximum increase right now is 8.8%. If you're not subject to AB 1482, then your rent can go up any amount. It isn't capped. It could go higher than 10%. If it goes higher than 10%, it could potentially trigger relocation assistance if the tenant moves out. This is called economic displacement relocation assistance. Depending on how many bedrooms are in the house, if the landlord increases your rent more than 10%, and the tenant moves out, these would be the amounts that the tenant has to be given. Talks about COVID-19 rental debt, and that is something we also talked about in our chart, that as of February 1st, 2024, a lot of folks are going to have to pay the last of their COVID rental debt. If it falls into February or March, remember you're protected by the LA County 12 months later rule. A few more things on here. Again, they cram a lot of good stuff on here for landlords and tenants to know. It talks about down here that any notice to terminate tenancy, whether it's at fault or no fault, must be given to LAHD so they have a copy. If a landlord does not do this, they're not going to be able to move forward with the unlawful detainer. That would be an affirmative action a tenant could use, and that is that LAHD did not receive a copy. Talks about evictions for non-payment of rent, the new minimum thresholds, and when you look at the eviction data, you can see the number of bedrooms on there, and you can see if they exceed these thresholds or not. And for example, if you have a 4-bedroom home and the tenant owes $3,500 in back rent, they can't be evicted. It has to be more than $3,600. So this chart here explains that. It's important to understand that all these charts are periodically updated. You need the latest numbers. Last important thing on here is tells you where to turn for help. As a landlord, if you have questions, you can reach out to LAHD. Same thing with renters. If you have questions, you can also file complaints, tells you how to do that as tenants. So a lot of information here in the renter protection notice. And And I forgot to mention how exciting this one's pink. The other ones weren't pink, so we'll have to see if they continue with other different colors of the rainbow. And don't forget, we're real estate agents based in Southern California. Don't even think about buying or selling in LA without reaching out to us first. Kenneth Mejia, the LA City Controller, releases data that you can actually dive into and take a look. How many evictions have we had since the end of the eviction moratorium, since February of 2023? According to the data compiled here, over 77,000 evictions have been filed, and it's required now that landlords, whether it's an at-fault or no-fault reason, have to submit to LAHD the eviction notice, so that's why they can now count the number of eviction notices. According to the data, which you can download and take a closer look, and I have, and there's some interesting trends in here, over 96% were for non-payment of rent. Now, bear in mind that not all 77,000 of these eviction notices are going to turn into evictions. Some folks may pay the rent within the 3 days, and some of these don't meet the minimum threshold for an eviction in the city of LA. They also list here the bedroom count, and why that's relevant is it has to meet that minimum threshold. So we encourage you to dive into the data. We have a link to Kenneth Mejia's LA City Controller data site so you can see this and other important numbers in the city of LA. Of course, since the protections for back rent owed due to COVID are for the most part over in LA City, we may start to see an increase in the evictions filed for non-payment of rent. We'll keep those updates coming to you. Let us know in the comments below where you think evictions are headed. If you learned something new in this video, you won't believe what we're about to share in this next one right here. Thanks for tuning in. This has been Christian Walsh, real estate agent with Wire Associates, and we can't wait to hear from you.